But the format again for today is going to be that you're going to have at any point, any of us who are here are going to pipe up and to come and just say, I wanted to add something, and you're going to hear it that way. So it really is not a one or two person presentation this morning. So why don't we pass maybe to the second slide? Go ahead.
So really the format for the discussion today is that we'll have this welcome that Jonathan's completed. We're going to have some time we're going to be talking face-to-face in small groups. So we'll be breaking out. We're going to share and strategize based off those small group discussions, and we'll have some next steps. So we'll be providing some information that you may be able to take action on, but we'll also be sharing with each other and see if we can come to some conclusions or agreements that way. So that's the order of discussion. We are a community here at ACS, and we want to make sure that we are being able to address some of these issues as a community and see if we can come to conclusions that way. We're aiming with this talk for balance, and when we say the word balance as opposed to trying to address this as a problem, we want to tackle this issue of balance, where students aren't necessarily finding the balance on their own, and we're going to see if we can find ways to support them in discovering this balance that we'd hope for them to have. We would like to help develop some collaboration where we have the ability as parents, as a parent community, to work with our kids, and for us as a school to be able to work with these young children as students. So these groups, we're going to have a discussion where we can come to some agreements where we are working as a community over these issues. Some of the issues that would be surrounding this is the healthy attitudes towards approaches to technology, and then finding some ability for the students to gain some self-control and helping support that development towards that balanced kind of approach. And we're looking for the good relationships to remain. The relationship between the school and the student, between the parent and the child, and all the other Venn diagram circles of the relationships between these various people. We do have a short video that's it's about 12 minutes long. It's gonna help set the context for our discussion. And so we'll be viewing that as a group, and we'll be able to take a look at this talk. It's a psychologist, her name is Lisa Demore, and she's talking about video games specifically, and based off that idea of video games, embedded in a lot of video games are a social media component, where there's discussions that are happening on the particular video game. So when we see video game, we're talking about the larger context of social media and video games, and really just media ingestion by students. So it's a 12-minute video. We'll take a look at that. After we look at the video, we're going to ask for you to take a look. We're going to ask you to think about what you've seen and to discuss it in a small group. So we'll be breaking out into self-selected small groups where you discuss what's been seen, and we'll talk about some of the context of this particular video. We'll talk about within context of ACS. Sound good? Cool.
My goal is to inspire women like me to.
Hello there to our viewers. We're in the Toyota Green Room with CBS News contributor and psychologist Lisa Demore. And this morning she's here to discuss the impact of unsupervised time on kids and also about video games. Earlier this year, Lisa actually wrote a wildly popular article about video gaming, the particular video game Fortnite. And she wrote it for the New York Times, and the title of that article is called Parenting the Fortnite Addict. Lisa, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Everyone is buzzing about this video game, but everyone's also buzzing about the World Health Organization calling video gaming a mental disorder. People are kind of surprised by this.
Yeah.
And their guidelines, Lisa, was that behavior should be sufficiently severe to result in significant impairment. I mean, to play a video game and to be physically that impaired, what do you make of that?
Well, so this is sort of an interesting controversy we have going on in the field. So the World Health Organization came out and said, we're going to call this an addiction. We're going to say there is such a thing as internet gaming disorder. The American Psychiatric Association, which is our sort of local body, is not there yet. It has been in the diagnostic manual we use as a provisional psychiatric disorder, but there hasn't been complete heavy concurrence around the idea that there's such a thing as video game addiction.
So what do you look for, Lisa, when you're if you're worried that your kid might be?
Yeah.
What are the signs?
Well, so whether or not everybody's in agreement about the diagnosis, we can agree that there can be too much of a good thing.
Mm.
You know, and I think that's true across the board. Like, it can be true with alcohol, it can be true with all sorts of things. So what we want to measure around life's indulgences, right? Are they making our lives better?
Mm.
Are they enhancing our lives, or are they crossing a line to where they actually make things worse? So now, of course, kids and parents may not be in agreement about the volume of this.
Yeah.
But I think we should start from the position that there's such a thing as healthy video game use, right?
What would that look like? Because I feel like there's no safe sort of healthy video game use. You say there is.
Well, let's assume there is. Let's work with that premise. That it could be for kids a fun way to have some downtime, a fun way to relax, a fun way to fill some of the open hours of the summer.
Yeah.
An interesting thing about Fortnite and some other games is that it's actually collaborative, that often kids play together on teams.
Because you could be in your home and playing with somebody in Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're working together as a collaborative team to try to make something happen. So there's the possibility that some video gaming could be part of a healthy picture of development.
Okay.
Then the question becomes like, well, how much are we talking, right? And so the very kind of broad lines that we can sort of draw are, well, kids should be doing a variety of things.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just do one thing all the time. Even if it's just reading, right? We wouldn't actually want a kid reading for 12 hours a day. They should be they should have a social life. They should be at dinner talking to their family. You know, they should be building other skills. So the concern about video gaming becomes when it starts to crowd out other things.
Okay. That's when it's an addiction.
Yeah.
Is there like a time limit you would say? Like if you're having more than an hour of video gaming, you're an addict. Can you say that?
We can't say that.
Okay.
We can't say that. And the word addict, is a complicated
Yes.
word. So I think it's really better to think, is it getting in the way of the other things that should be happening?
Gotcha.
Right? And one of the ways that parents can engage this in slightly less hostile terms, right? Because you're trying to get along with your kid while also regulating this, is to say, it's not so much that I'm against the video games, it's that I'm for these other things. I'm for you getting enough sleep. I'm for you being outside. I'm for you reading. I'm for you looking over the summer work that you have to.
This is the parenting aspect that I love that you always tell me that I have such difficulty understanding is how to have the conversation with my kid without isolating them because I have a short fuse. I've come home from work and I just want no, you get off that video game, enough TV.
Yeah.
Like that's it, I'm long.
Yeah.
This isn't a democracy, but you say the way you talk to them, there's a certain way that doesn't isolate your child.
Yeah, I mean, we can make it sort of like, look, I'm on your side in defense of these healthier things. I think another point that parents can make easier on themselves is the moment when you say it's time to get off and how that moment goes. I've seen parents very successfully say to their kid, if I have to stand over you and ask more than once, or if you don't stop yourself and you've agreed, like, you got your hour and the hour's up, if I have to come regulate that, then we're going down to way less.
So there's got to be consequences.
So there's got to be consequences. So it's one thing to say, look, we're going to agree to you can have an hour a day, a couple hours a day, whatever the family agrees to. I think as an additional, parents should go ahead and say, when those 2 hours are up, you take yourself off. If I have to come find you, we're going down to 20 minutes,
Okay.
Or you're going down to 0 for a week.
Okay.
I think that there's the agreement, and then there's the enforcement of the agreement, and I think often where things come to grief is when it's the moment of trying to enforce it. So I would build that into the agreement on the front end.
Okay. I love in your article you talk about also about Fortnite. But there's also a component that for people who know this video game, I mean, it's widely popular. Over 100 million people are on this game, but it's built to be a little bit addictive.
It is built to be addictive, and all video games are, right? People who are making video games know exactly what they're doing. And so we have looked, on the research side at, like, what's the science of addiction in terms of, like, what pulls kids into video games, what pulls people into video games. So there are things that we know. Great graphics. And Fortnite happens to have extremely good graphics. A game that advances rapidly, things start happening really, really quickly, actually pulls people in. A sense of humor actually draws people into games. Yeah, it's got funny features, it's got funny dances that people do. So those are some basics that we see. Other things that make games very sticky is something, the technical term is an intermittent reinforcement schedule. In lay language, in everyday language, that is, you never know when you might get lucky. So this is how gambling works, right? Which is you can have a dry run for a month and then be lucky 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
it makes it very hard to walk away from the gambling table. The same thing happens in video games, and Fortnite has an example of this, where there's a piece of the game that's sheer luck, where you land on the island, what you happen to find. And so a kid could have several unlucky passes at Fortnite, and then they have one lucky thing happen, and they cannot walk away.
Walk away. But couldn't you say the same thing too, Lisa, for our just normal consumption on social media? Did something like that Facebook, how many people are watching Facebook? You know, I've got to go back and check it.
Yes.
It's compulsive to the point that we can't walk away.
And it's designed to feel that kind of can't stop feeling. And even if we go back to the idea of the intermittent reinforcement schedule, there's something in the notifications, like you never know if you're going to get one, and so that keeps you coming back to check. So if you go a long time with no notification and then you get a notification, that makes you want to continue more.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about the shooting aspect, because I think that's something that parents really struggle with. So Fortnite does involve shooting. It involves lots of elements, but that is an important element of the game, is you're actually trying to kill 99 other competitors of the 100 who've been dropped on the island. The American Pediatric Association has a blanket recommendation that kids should not play games that involve shooting other humans.
I mean, we all sort of know that's not a great idea, but what is it that the Pediatric Society?
I think that they feel like it's violent, it's encouraging violence. We can't, in good conscience, say, sure, have your kid play lots of things that encourage violence. When we look at the social science on this, because we've looked at this a lot, I mean, this is a really critical question. You know, do violent video games make kids more violent?
Yeah.
So the way I've heard this described by a psychologist named Sean Green, who specializes in this, he said, everyone starts somewhere on a violent continuum, right? There are people, and he said, one way to think about it is, what would they do if they were bumped into by accident? Would they say, oh, excuse me? Or would they turn around and punch the person, right? Like that's sort of a way to think about where do people start in terms of sort of their inherent violent reaction. What we know is, best as we know from the research, is that if people play a lot of violent video games, it kind of moves them on that continuum. So if someone's not violent at all, we don't have a reason to think that playing violent video games are going to have much in the way of real world consequences.
Yeah.
If someone's pretty violent to start, that's probably a reason to say it's a no-go.
Yeah.
So this, again, doesn't give parents, you know, a clear up and down about what they should do, but it's helpful context, at least from the research side, about what we know.
And there were so many parents who are just like, absolutely not. I'm never going to let my child play video games where you're shooting at people. And then my husband always says to me, his mom never allowed guns in the house, like toy guns, that sort of thing. Just didn't want to encourage that for the reasons you say. And he became a war correspondent. You know, like, so is there a certain, you know, you don't, the forbidden fruit quality, aspect of it?
And there can be that, and there's also the going over to so-and-so's house and playing, right, which kids will do. So, you know, in terms of like real world parenting, how does this play out? So I think there's a couple things parents can say. They can say, we don't feel good about this, so we're limiting it. Or we're going to look at the age levels on shooting games. So Fortnite, for instance, is appropriate, according to the people who rate it, for kids 13 and up. There are other shooting games that start at higher age levels. So I think one thing parents might say is, okay, if we're saying yes to shooting games, you can't play a shooting game for a kid older than you are. I also think parents should not feel hopeless about it if they know that their kid is going over to somebody else's house and playing. Because as long as they've said their piece at home, they've said, look, here's why we don't feel good about these, you know, and just articulated their reasons, it's not nothing that their child is sitting at somebody else's house thinking, I'm not supposed to be doing this. My parents don't feel good about this. The values are still being transmitted. The filter is still there.
It's still there. Are there types of video games you feel that are more addictive than others, and things to look for when you're saying, okay, these are okay, these are not?
You know, I think they're all designed to be addictive. I think then the question is sort of what rings your kid's bell.
Yes.
I also think probably the most useful quality about talking about the addictive potential of games is that it helps us appreciate kids are a little bit at the mercy of this very sophisticated industry, right? And we worry about opioids because they are wildly addictive at the biological level, right? That we sort of appreciate, like, somebody's up against something bigger than them. It's not unhelpful to think about video games the same way. The second a kid is playing a video game, they are being manipulated by an industry that has designed themselves to do that. So I think, though it may not receive a wholeheartedly joyful reception, I think it is helpful to talk with kids about it that way. Say, look, this is designed to suck you in for 8 hours straight. That's not gonna happen here. You and I are gonna have to put some parameters about it. That feels to me a little different than saying to a kid, what are you doing? What is so wrong with you? You're back at it. You know, I mean, it's, the kid's up against something pretty big.
So you always, I love this, and I said this earlier about having conversations with your kids instead of like sort of harping on them and being, why are you doing this? You are really great about being open and saying, here's what happens. I want to explain to you. Why is that so important?
Well, I think then you're speaking to the more mature and hopefully helpful side of the child, right? Like, and I think all of us, and kids especially, we have sort of the indulgent, naughty, never want to get out of bed, watch, binge watch Netflix all day side, and then we have our rational, thoughtful, want healthy things side. When we're raising kids and teenagers, talking to the rational, healthy, let me help you understand why we're asking this of you, let me help you understand why we think this is in your best interest side, aligns part of them with your program against the other part of them they would like to play Fortnite for 8 hours a day.
I love that you said there is truly a rational side to teenagers.
Yes, there
it's
is.
there.
It
really is there.
And if you speak to it, it shows up.
I love that.
And if you talk down to teenagers, they usually meet you right there.
That's powerful. That is powerful. Wow. Lisa DeMoore, we always love it when you come and you join us, especially here in the Toyota Green Room. I want to thank all of you guys out there for joining us on Facebook Live. There'll be much more. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.
So what we'd like to do now is that we'll be breaking out into some small groups. That's going to involve you standing up and walking over. We have some space over here. Let's not stand up quite yet. I know you were ready to jump. What we're going to do is in small groups, maybe 4 people, if you could gather around, if you want to start, we call it a campfire group, because when you have good conversations around a campfire, it's a strategy that we use as a school. Some real meaningful conversations can happen. So if we could go up, we'll be getting to groups of 4. We're going to reflect briefly on the video. If there's some points that you thought were valuable and that you could share amongst the group, or what you thought was really a good takeaway from it, let's share those out. And then our second question that we really want to have you address, or something that you could talk about, are some solutions or suggestions, some strategies that you might use as a parent in dealing with this issue of media use with elementary through middle school students. So let's stand up, let's go find a spot together, and let's have a brief discussion.
Parenting was difficult, and that each child was unique, and that it's okay to have different rules in different families. We also talked about the supervision was more when they were little, and that there had to be a gradual release of responsibility so that they could learn some things over time. And we talked a lot about changing the language of how we talk to kids about gaming. So that's enough. Thank you very much. I'm heading off to my next meeting, and I raised 2, and they both survived. One that was definitely in the middle of Minecraft all the time, so I have many horror stories of trying to figure that out as a mom, and now he doesn't play any of them. So good luck though.
So Monique is also modeling the ACS core value of courage by going first. But it is a courageous thing. So anybody else that would like to share out?
First follower is also courageous.
I'll say something. I think we also talked about practice what you preach, right? You cannot come home and every time your phone beeps or blinks and then you grab your phone, check this message. And unless it's unless you're a first responder, like a firefighter or policeman, does it really have to be that you have to check that message right away and then turn your kid and say put that phone down? Well, you're on your phone too, and then you zip it up. I think strategies let's have phone-free zone at our house too. When we walk into, put your phone on silent, so then we are not because we are trained to that. You're not beeping, right? Unconsciously, our hand goes there. Put the phone on silent, put it aside until the kids are getting ready for the bed, so they don't see you around with your phone some extension of your body. Then they don't. You don't give them the ground to say hey, you're on your phone all the time. That's another thing. That's one thing. And another thing we briefly talked about is we as parent community, if we can come up with some mutually agreed ground rules to enforce on our kids, because like it's hard also, like one kid, like your kid comes home and you says like, well, like so and so does this, so and so does that, like they can play 4 hours a day. Like, I mean, it's easier to say, you know, like, hey, different mama, different rules, you know, like, I mean, they go with that, we go with this, but also like educating the parents, saying like, hey, just because, let's say, I'm just gonna jump briefly from like video games to social media, but like, just because some families think that, like, I mean, I'm okay with my kid being part of a, you know, like WhatsApp chat group, because otherwise my kid is gonna feel left out because all the other kids are there. Is that the right approach, or should we tell the kids like, hey, I mean, if you wanna feel included, that's when you do your, you know, like interaction and communication with your friends, when you're at, you know, at school, or when you are on a play date. But like, just because at like 10 p.m. there's like some people are messaging and you're not reading that, you shouldn't feel like you're not being a part of a group. Like I think if we encourage, like, again, social media side of it, if we are encouraging, like, it's okay to talk like 10 people in one group setting on a WhatsApp chat. That's like form of like communicating. I personally don't believe that's the right form of communicating, especially for the middle school age kids, while they are not socially or emotionally mature enough to handle that type of conversation. Okay.
Well said. If you do drive an ambulance, though, please do answer your phone.
Okay, so our group, we had a variety of, I mean, there's gaming, social media, YouTube usage. So we talked about the various, issues that we have. What resonated with us from the video was that talking to them at their level and realizing that there is a reasonable side to them. The issue is being consistent, because, they're not going to necessarily accept it the first time, but if you are consistent and persistent and you keep on giving them these messages, somehow, someday, it'll get through and they may be on board with you. Some strategies we talked about to help, to help them not use social media or gaming would be to put them in a public space, to have their laptops in a public space, not in their bedroom, so that you're kind of able to monitor once in a while. After having had that talk with them, limit the usage and agree with them on how much time they can use it on a daily basis, and just make sure that again, it's hard. Parenting is not easy, and making sure that you're checking up on them at least for the first month or so, just to make sure that they're abiding by the rules. Making sure that their computers are not in their rooms, they're being charged elsewhere, and also making sure that they don't have access to their computers or phones, before they go to bed, so that they can have like an hour before they go to bed to whatever it is, read, talk. So do some kind of different kind of activity that would take them away, and finally keep them busy with any activities that are, because then that will just naturally give them less time to be online and gaming or using social media.
I'm just going to add to that, because it ties into some of the things that we brought. Some of the best advice I got in one of my book groups years ago was family, this idea of have them do other things, but a lot of kids won't. You need to do something else, and they look at you with a blank stare. So as a family, what they did was they brainstormed, and they had it out in their family room, this list of other activities. And it could be everything from, the family inclusive activities of going biking and cooking and things like that, to the other sort of mundane puzzle making, book reading, and Play-Doh, or whatever it is. But having the family create an alternative activities list, so that then when it's time to turn off the tech, it's super compelling. We found out why. They're not going to want to give that up, because that is really, really cool stuff. So if it's time to turn it off and you don't want to get the argument, all you got to do is point. And you have this list of other things you can be doing with your time. And so I thought that was an amazing idea. And I think that it was one that was well received. So a thought for people.
Hi everyone. In my group, about struggles more than solutions and strategies. I think everyone was totally speaking from their own experience. Strategies, we kept repeating ourselves with the things that we kept trying from before. Talk to your kid in a different way, like an adult, go to their level. I've tried that. So many of us tried that as well, but it stays for a short period of time, and then someone gets frustrated with the process, doesn't work, pulls off, and that doesn't continue to happen the way we agreed we wanted to happen. So for me and for us, maybe we did not really see a new strategy or a new way that will really solve the problem. I think this is a first initial discussion, and it will take some time to find the right solution to it. And I believe finding the right solution for a problem that we never had before, it requires more of our collaboration together as parents, and having more circles and discuss more really what works for you, what doesn't, and keep meeting and discussing and finding those solutions, because in one meeting I don't believe we can find them. And also I believe we need to include our kids in the discussion, because now we are just speaking from our heads here, and we're not the ones who has now this kind of problem playing or on the game. We are the ones witnessing and having the problem, witnessing this problem. So I think we need to involve, in my opinion, we need to involve the kids to really come together as parents, as kids, together in one room and say, this is our problem, what do you think? And have two groups talking to each other. And maybe, when actually I'm not just speaking to my kid, when all parents speak to all their kids, maybe there would be a different kind of collaboration here between us, understanding. Maybe kids will actually commit with each other, commit in front of each other to one solution, in front of a whole bunch of parents. The whole parents commit together to a solution in front of the whole group of students. Maybe this will get a different kind of result. Because now what we're doing is just speaking on our own, and we're very separate from the main topic, which are our kids. I think if we come together in one space and not be separated this way, I think maybe a solution can come forward here that is very different than what we're trying to create here. Because I think what I'm hearing here, talk to your kid different. Hear the suggestion, do this, limit the time. I've tried all of that, honestly speaking, and I'm keeping repeating myself, and I'm actually getting more and more frustrated. So it's not getting me anywhere.
Yeah, and I think if I can add, that all of the points, you're right, this is definitely not meant to be the solution. I can offer to you that we're sitting in this room struggling. Our kids don't see it as a problem. Our kids don't see their engagement in social media as a problem. Our kids don't see the gaming as a problem. They really, really do not. But we're the adults. We get to see the symptoms. We get to see the detachment. We get to see our students and the stress that they're having every single day with all their social interactions. We get to see, I was sharing with a group, I'm like, did you guys know that in Fortnite you can live feed and people can literally watch you play and people can donate money to you? And so there's a kid who's sharing with me that there's a guy there's a avocado man who has been watching him play for 4 hours. Now to me, as a parent, that's alarming. This is a pedophile venue waiting to take place. So yeah, am I being alarmist as a parent? Absolutely. But does my child think that? Or does that child think that? No, that child's like, this is cool, somebody's enjoying watching me for 4 hours. So the courageous thing, and I really want to bring this up because yes, there are no easy solutions. And I hear what you're saying, we all need to agree, we all need to do this. But I'm gonna offer and brings back to you guys. As parents, we have the responsibility of holding the moral compass of our families. And it cannot be that what we're modeling for our kids is, we don't want you to feel left out, we don't want you to stand out, we don't want you to be different, and we certainly don't want people to make fun of you because your parents don't allow you. We have got to get courageous. We have got to say, it's okay. My child is not going to be alone forever. This is a difficult age, and the more I hear, and I'm very passionate about this because it really is just such a strong message to the battle our children are fighting. Because if our own parenting is afraid of our kids not fitting in, not being a part, so we allow our kids to be a part of a chat group that's 80 kids deep, nothing good good comes out of a chat group that's 80 kids deep. But we're like, but if my kid walks out, he's gonna be left out. So I can offer to you that not easy solutions, but if we are not careful and we do not have the courage to define in our families what we stand for and hold on to that, our kids are gonna be pissed at us. They're not gonna be happy with us. But at the end of the day, just holding them accountable and helping them navigate this. And helping them navigate does not mean that we're like, yeah, we want you to be cool too. So yeah, we're gonna let you play because everybody else. By the way, everybody else is completely over-reported. And kids are using this against you. That everybody else is playing. When people check in with each other, like, no, I'm not letting my kid play Sunday through Thursday. No, I didn't tell my kid that he could do that. So that everybody else, the kids have manipulated us into thinking because they know we care about their social status. We gotta stop caring about their social status. We gotta start caring about their mind. We gotta start caring about their soul. That's my 2 pieces.
As a parent, I have a question for every one of us over here. Who does buy the games and who does buy the consoles for the kids?
But we don't want them to feel left out.
Okay, so if we allow them to buy the games and if we can upgrade their games, because like I have a high schooler who is 15 years. I've been blackmailed over the years.
Yes, that's the word.
Dad, there's a new game, can I buy it? Dad, there's a new console, can I upgrade, can I buy? I sometimes look, okay, no, I don't have budget, but then I say, okay, I get blackmailed, very frankly. But then again, if we complain about them playing so much of time or using the time, then again, it's our responsibility how much you want to put that thing onto them. Do you want to upgrade that game? Do you want to upgrade their video card? Do you upgrade? When you buy the games, they're not buying themselves. You are buying with your credit card or you're going to the store to buy. So you're responsible. End of the day, it's our responsibility. And again, we have to ask them, okay, I'm going to buy this game. How much time you going to spend? If you want to go to spend so much of time, I'm not buying this thing. It's again, all falls on us. So because we are the cause root of it. Very frank.
This is about gaming, right? So I mean, a lot of the people also have problems with social media, which you don't buy that, you just go in. And in 7th grade, you get your own laptop. So whether the parent's not making the decision for school. So if it were up to me, maybe I wouldn't buy a laptop, but I have to for school, which means that, and social media is free. So how do you then monitor that? What is a parent to do when they have that laptop? They can have access to the internet, they have access to YouTube, and to waste their time watching things that you don't necessarily want them to watch.
Can I ask a question now? Let me ask a question. How many of you feel a flutter in your heart when you think of turning the Wi-Fi off in your house? If you feel that flutter.
Yeah. But then they
That's
need
a
it.
great example. No.
Yeah, they need it for
No.
work, for schoolwork.
No, no, not always. That's a myth.
I'm sorry, I
Yes.
can't
Working
complain
on
that
it.
we don't give enough homework.
You can
so I
download
can't
Google
imagine.
Docs.
I can't imagine
We have
that they're using
teachers
it for
who do their
homework.
grading, they can download, there are ways to work offline. But what's interesting is if you wanted to turn your Wi-Fi off in your house, how disruptive as an adult and a parent would that feel to you? I would miss my Netflix. Not that. So that's a reality that we're fighting, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things you ask for strategies, and how to, you have the laptop out, and obviously we have talked about having it in a public space where you can be aware of it. The kids, a lot of their behaviors come down to being honest with you.
Yeah.
Show me what you have. You can do a quick little Google search on how to check the history on their Google Chrome. And so educate yourself, learn a little bit about, okay, where have they been? You're not telling me the truth. And if you're not telling me the truth, that's a totally different part of parenting. You've lied to me. Okay, so how am I going to deal with that? Whether it has to do with technology or, taking some gum from somebody else or whacking their brother, it is a different, that's a different conversation we're able to have apart from technology. Now with technology, we're going to provide a link at the end that you can take a picture of that has links to all these how-tos, parent control apps, routers that you can buy and you can install hardware and software that you can use to turn off their device and don't let them have access to the internet. And you know, you can turn off all your routers, or sorry, all of your devices, or just some of the devices. You can put time limits on them that they'll be done at a certain time. So 8 o'clock, the Wi-Fi on their 3 devices, for some of them, will be turned off. And then you'll be able to go to bed and have that hour before bedtime, that sort of thing. So there will be some how-tos at the end. We're in the tech office. If you have a question about how to follow through with that, please pop in and we can help you work through that. But it's obviously there's no silver bullet, but there's building blocks of solutions for this. One of my friends, he posted on Facebook, "Hey, I'm out to dinner with my wife and Mr. Cisco." He just took the entire router with him because his 3 high school teenage girls, he's like, I just couldn't stand it anymore. And they went out, and so they had no internet for the evening. And I thought that was a pretty clever solution to it. And to follow up on a statement that was also made about, you know, talking with the kids and parents. When my kids were, my son was heavy into League of Legends in 8th grade, all their friends, they're staying up late. You know, we met with the parents and we brought the kids in, and we started with their 2 best friends, and then we added a couple other friends so that we could kind of come to a reasonable agreement of what our houses were going to look like, and they were going to share similar. During the weekend, we'd cut it off at midnight, or we'd cut it off at a certain time, because they're 13, 14, getting a little older, and we made that decision as a group, or you know, we started small with the ones that we knew they played with a lot, and then we moved out.
And just one more thing, the public place has worked for me actually, so I should say that a couple of weeks ago I decided to remove the laptop from my daughter's room and put it in a more public place where I could kind of monitor once in a while, and that's worked really well. So I think computers should be out of the room.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So this is the link up here.
This is, we have a family media agreement, and this is the link that you probably want to take a picture of.
See how many likes you get.
Yeah, that's it. Post out.
And Alvin and I can share this through the principal newsletters as well too, so you have access to this whole presentation.
And we'll let you get a couple pictures of this. And what we'll do is we'll take you through and show you just a couple of the pieces of it. We do have some print-offs for you, but it's a way of hosting this conversation. And we likened this conversation. We said that in the video they said that gaming is an indulgence in life, and another indulgence, just to give another kind of a simile or something like that, where it's like we have sugar, and sugar is something that we limit for our children, and it is an indulgence, and we have a say in that, our students and our children, how much sugar they get, and maybe that same kind of conversation can take place where we limit the sugar, we limit the gaming. Let's go over to, this is one of the links that's off of there. It's and we have some print copies of this as well. It's a family media agreement for students K through 5. It will give you some talking points on how you can host this conversation and talk with your child about media, and it has those different things. This is on the link, if you want to do that. It just gives you some talking points. It also is lined out where it's a little bit more age appropriate for grades 6 through 8, and then we have a couple of copies for 9 through 12 if you have a student in the high school. Another site that we have off of our linked document is this healthychildren.org, where it has an electronic copy of this for the family media plan.
It's much, much more detailed, and it lets you make some choices. Like, I'm going to choose that they have an hour, that they're not gonna have their device an hour before bedtime. But I'm okay if they play with friends. You know, you can make some choices in this agreement, so it's more tailored to your family.
And I've gone through this with my children, and I had them go on the computer and check the box after we read it together, so that they felt some ownership in the process, so that it felt like a discussion. It was a conversation, but they took some ownership in being able to check that box. And at the end, it does recommend that you print it off, and you can post it in a couple different places, so you can quickly reference to it. Another part to this healthychildren.org is it has a bar graph, I suppose, of the different activities that you might be doing during the school day. And you could do it for the weekend or for the school day, and you're gonna see that different chunks of time take up different parts of the day, and it leaves, by the end, really your screen time after you go through how much activities students and children have during the day. It really limits the screen time down to, well, my kids ended up with negative time, so it really helps illustrate for them, and going through the process of saying, okay, how long are you at school? How long do you need to take a bath at night, or how long does it take for us to eat a meal? They come to their own conclusion that they don't have much time for this, or that maybe it's not it's the last thing that they should really value. And it does come back to those values and what you want to instill in your children. And so the document ends up looking like this, just a couple of links off of it. We do have the information on the parent control apps and the routers. If you're running on iOS or OS X on the Mac platform, there are some tools built in. If you're on PC, there's some other external tools that you can incorporate. Or you can go with a hardware solution where it has built into the Wi-Fi so that you can control it through an application. Cool.
And we'll be giving we have parent workshops a couple times a month, and we'll be building one of those parent workshops to kind of speak to some of these hardware and software solutions, so you can bring your device and we can take a look probably in February, March.
That about ends our program today. Is there any other comments as we go out, or any other questions that we can address?
Thank you so
Share that.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of success in doing something here at ACS, which is really celebrating the good. And I think a lot of you, if you ask your children what the core values are of the school and what are some examples and when have they seen it, so too, we do a lot of, and it's through our conversations, it's through big events, but it's also through media as well too, that we celebrate the good. I think there's an opportunity for some suggestions that Eric and Jared were sharing as well too. If you have, if you're part of a WhatsApp group, a parent WhatsApp group, which many parents are, and they exist for every grade level and for many classes individually too, it's a great opportunity to use that medium and to celebrate the good. And by celebrate the good, I mean if you've taken a courageous step as a family, you've had those conversations, you've used the tools, you've created a family media agreement, and you know that it's not easy because you're going to get some pushback, or but you've been courageous in doing this. Celebrate the good. Sort of go ahead and share that and show off, because what that does is that conversation where your child comes home and says, "But everybody gets to do this." You now have some data, or other people have data that no, not everybody is doing that. Actually, some really great decisions and conversations are happening in other homes of your grade level. And so to celebrate that, and then other people saying, "We just did the same. We just did the same." Next thing you know, you've got everybody doing what we want. We've got much healthier conversations. So hopefully we're able to use social media in that case for good as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
In the meantime, tell your